Hi everyone, and welcome to The Path to Reason. I'm your host, Cindy Plaza, and tonight we're going to talk about critical thinking again and the tools that it provides. But before that, I would like to get something off my chest. I told about the beginning of my journey as a critical thinker and a rationalist on several occasions, including this week on Neil the 4 Atheists show. And I mentioned several times that it began with someone I met and who introduced me to a forum called rationalskepticism.org, which is a forum where we talk a lot about critical thinking, reason, science, and all these things. And this forum has been pivotal to the change in my life, and it's been very, very important, and it's the reason why I'm here. And this morning I learned that someone from this forum I love very much died of cancer, and I would like to say a few words about her, because without her and all the other people I met on this forum, I wouldn't be there today doing this video. And this person in particular was, she was very, very strong, and it took this formidable opponent to take her down, because I don't think anything less would have sufficed. She was kind, she was generous with her time, she was especially with her time to other people. She was smart, and she had a great sense of humor, and I will miss her very, very much, because I loved the interaction I had with her, even though I actually never met her in person. But yeah, I'm very sad today, and I think this community we have online lost someone very, very special and very important to our group. And yeah, that's I'm really wishing her husband and daughter will be all right, because it's really it's so unfair to lose someone at this age. So yeah, I'm wishing them the best possible life from now, and the rest of their family also. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Now let's go back to the topic of this video, and rational thinking, critical thinking, and the tools we can use that's provided by critical thinking. So first of all, we saw in the first video that we had rational thinking at the top of the chain. That was the addition of knowledge and critical thinking. We said that they are both very, very important, and well, equally important to help us think more critically, which is a goal we'll never achieve, because we are human and we are very much flawed in our way of thinking. So both of them can be learned and have to be learned, in my opinion. You need some basic facts to be able to base your reasoning on, and you need proper reasoning skills to reason. So you need both. Then we saw that critical thinking is a set of soft skills and hard skills. We talked about the soft skills in the last videos. The extremely high importance of understanding how human psyche works, because I've been realizing these last couple of weeks, the more I watch debates between theists and atheists, or between rational people and the conspiracy theorists or anything like that. We tend to focus a lot on critical thinking and saying, oh, well, those theists or those pseudoscience believers or all those people, they lack critical thinking skills, and they do. But many reasoning, flawed reasonings are caused also by the fact that they don't understand how the human mind works. And I think we need to do a better job at explaining how the basics of psychology, because you cannot understand cognitive biases or accept them if you don't understand how we evolved to be the creature we are. And I'm running right now about these topics, behavioral evolution and all that, and probably in the next few months I will be able to talk more about it. But I think it's important to mention it because, yeah, it's not just knowledge. We don't need to understand all the ways the human mind can work, but we need to understand at least the basics, because again, our cognitive biases and our reasoning flaws are very often influenced by our misunderstanding of our own thinking, which is kind of weird in a way. So understanding how the human mind works, skepticism, which is also very important, and intellectual honesty. These are the three main soft skills contained in critical thinking. And tonight we're going to see the hard skills, which to me are science, cognitive biases, and logic. I'm not going to go too much into detail into each of one, because I could do a couple hours for each, and I might do it in the future. I'm just going to give an overview of them and why they are important and their basics. So science is very much misunderstood by a lot of people on every side, whether it's atheist, theist, everywhere on both sides. Science tend to be misunderstood, and I'm not claiming I know better, because I'm not a scientist and I still have a lot to learn on this topic. But what we tend to call science usually is, more accurately, the scientific method, is one of the existing method, is the hypothetical deductive method. This method is the best tool we have at the moment to understand how anything works. And I know atheists tend to say that a lot, but it's true, because I'm going to show it that this scientific method exists and is used pretty much everywhere, and we don't even realize it. But before that, we need to understand that science is not an arbiter of truth. It just says, okay, that's what we know today. It doesn't say we will never know this, or we know everything about this, or anything like that. It just says this is what we know at the moment, based on the information we have and the explanation we managed to derive from them. And so, yeah, it's important to understand that science is not fixed. Science is not, it's changes over time. The method itself change. Well, the methods themselves change also over time. But every time we discovered that science was wrong, it was with more science and not with any other so-called method used by other people, like faith, like belief, like anything else. None of these so-called methods have ever brought us knowledge of the world around us. Every time we thought that demons were the cause that humans behaved weirdly, we discovered with science that it wasn't demons, that it was mental disease, for example. And the same applies for every little bit of knowledge we accumulate as a species in the last 50,000 years. So far, this scientific method is the only tool we have, and it's extremely effective because it's used well. The evidence that it's extremely effective is that it's used everywhere. If you look at a doctor, for example, well, before let me explain what the method is. So there are 4 major steps. The first one is observation. We observe a phenomenon, we see something happening, and we want to understand what caused it. And so the first step is always observation. Second step is to build a hypothesis that could explain the mechanisms behind this observation, and that's not the most how can I say that, the most safe and secure step, because of course it's limited by our imagination, by our understanding of everything, but it allows us to at least try something. And the third step is precisely to test this hypothesis, design a test, try to isolate the process we're trying to explain as much as possible, remove as much as randomness and inferences as possible. And then, according to the results of the test we have, either the hypothesis is confirmed or it's not, and then that gives us more information, and then we go back to building another hypothesis based on the new information we had, and then test this hypothesis and run and run and run again until we until the hypothesis can help us predict the income of this phenomenon, because the strength of science is that it can help us make prediction. The fact that I know that if I drop my phone, if I let it go from my hand, I know that it will fall, because this is a repeatable process. Everything we drop falls, and everything we explained with science allowed us to make prediction. Evolution, look at any field in science, the explanations we have at the moment allow us to make predictions on phenomena. Of course, there are some we can't explain at the moment, and that doesn't mean that the method is flawed. It just means that we don't have enough information to test, or the hypotheses we have are wrong, or there can be many explanations, but that doesn't mean the method itself is false. And so this is an important thing to understand. This method is continuous and iterative. It means we revise all the time the information we have. And something that's important to keep in mind is that whenever we want to replace an explanation by another one, the new one has to explain everything the previous one already explained on top of anything else. Michael Shermer explains it very well in his video called the, I will put the link in the description. It's No, I'm not getting it back. It will come back probably during the video. If you want to, if you claim that you have a better explanation than the one that's currently believed, then you need to prove that your explanation is better, and by doing that, you also need to show that your explanation covers all the cases covered by the previous explanation. So yeah, that's pretty much this method. We need to realize also that science always check itself. It means every time someone makes a discovery and and wants to explain something, they need to give evidence of their explanation, and this evidence is revised by peers. Other people with knowledge of the area will try to disprove or prove the hypothesis provided by the person. And of course, since we are human, some people will try to cheat, some people can be wrong, some people will try to rig the system, and that will happen, and it happens. The thing we have to keep in mind is that truth always comes out. Always, always, always. It can take 5 minutes, 5 years, 50 years, 500 years, but it will always come out at the end. And so if you want to learn about critical thinking and rational thinking in general, and if you don't have this will to find the truth in everything, then maybe you're kind of wasting your time, because you can learn all the tools, all the thought processes, all the knowledge you want. If you're not interested in finding what's true, then you will never apply those methods, those tools, and it will be a waste of time for you. So I suggest anyone who wants to learn about critical thinking ask themselves one question: what if one of my core beliefs is challenged? Will I stop believing in it, or will I continue? And the answer to that question will tell you how important to you truth is, and whether you should or should not spend some time. And it takes a lot of time to learn about critical thinking and everything that's around. So try to think about it before you engage in this, because it can be very, very long and very hard. So make sure you're not wasting your time. So some examples of this scientific method we've been using is, if you're a doctor, the first step is observing the symptoms of the disease. Then second step is, well, usually when we have those symptoms, 90% of the time it's this disease, so I'm going to try to cure this disease and see how it goes. And if the disease is cured, then the hypothesis was correct, and if not, then we will make more exams and more and different treatments, and until we find the real disease and the right treatment. So observation, building a hypothesis, test of the hypothesis, and evaluation of the results. That's what we said earlier was the scientific method, and doctors do the same. Cops do the same. When there's a crime, we observe the crime scene, then we ask for witnesses, testimonies, and based on that we build a hypothesis. We make a list of potential criminals, and then we test this hypothesis by taking their fingerprints, taking their alibis, and everything else. And if those suspects are not guilty, then we go back to building a new hypothesis, finding new suspects, and again until the right suspect is the guilty one. Again, that's the same thing: observation, building a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis, and evaluating the results. If your car has broke down and you bring it to a mechanics, it's same process: observation of the behavior of the car. Does it start? Does it not start? Is it making a weird noise? Then based on this information, we will build a hypothesis. Okay, this usually this is the case. This is a problem. We try to fix it, and if it doesn't solve the problem, then we know it's another issue, and then we keep going. So this method is everywhere, and that's because it works. There is no denying that it actually works. So we need to make sure we have a better understanding of all this. So now we've talked about the scientific method. Let's go to the cognitive biases. So a cognitive bias is basically a flaw in a reasoning, a subconscious flaw in the reasoning, because cognitive biases are the result of our evolution as a species, and most of them, or maybe all of them, are caused by some behavior we inherited from our ancestors. So there are a lot of them. I think around 120, 130, something like that. They can be arranged in different categories. You can look this up in Wikipedia, for example. There's a nice round chart grouping them, and you can click on each one and have an explanation. So it's important to be aware of them, because we cannot avoid them, that's for sure, because again, they're the consequences of the flaws in our thinking. So we cannot avoid them. We can, however, be educated on them and try to isolate them and identify them and make sure once we committed them, we can correct them because we know we committed one. And that's why we need to be aware of them, not because we can prevent them. We never will, well, not all of them at least. So we can give a few examples. The main one, the one that we often talk the most about is the confirmation bias. It's a way for us to avoid conflicting information and seeking confirming information. I mean, when we have an idea on a subject, we will tend to try and find information that confirms this preconceived belief or idea, and push back the contradicting information. That's in almost every discussion you will have on social media. You will realize that when you present new information to people, there's a resistance, because they will, well, the resistance itself is not the confirmation biases, but you realize that people tend to go to sources of information that already fits their narrative or their conception of the world. And I understand that it's hard to overcome this, but we need to do a better job, and me too. We need to do a better job at taking our information from different sources. If we always read the same newspaper, always look at the same show on YouTube or on TV, we will slowly build an echo chamber, and this is not good, because this will build up this confirmation bias, and it prevents contradicting information to come in. And there's the extreme of this bias is called the Morton's demon. I like this one very much, because I discovered it a couple of years ago, and since then it's been fascinating, because it's, again, since it's the extreme version of this cognitive bias, it's not very common, but sometimes you can see it. The Morton's demon has been created by a guy called Morton, who used to be a younger creationist, and left religion, and he theorized this kind of behavior where you have a demon over there, just above your head, and you don't know that it's there. And every time you get new information, new sensorial input, the demon grabs this information first and tests it and sees if it fits your vision of the world. And if it doesn't, this demon will toss this information or this input, and this will make so that the person doesn't even know that there are contradicting information. And sometimes, and recently I sorry, sometimes you realize that you think that someone is of bad faith because they don't accept contradicting evidence. But in some rare cases, the person is really unaware that these contradicting ideas even exist, and that's very strange, because you don't understand how someone who believes the Earth is flat, how they can keep this narrative and not see the gigantic amount of evidence of the opposite. It's just that some of them, they just don't see this evidence. It just doesn't appear to them, even though they will sometimes have a discussion with someone, or see a video, or anything like that. The information will be filtered even before reaching their cognitive brain, and that's a fascinating idea, because we realize that we can be fooled to an extremely high level, and that's kind of scary, and we need to make sure we develop the tools to prevent that. So another cognitive bias is this one has been very famous for the last 4 years. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. So Dunning and Kruger are two scientists, two psychology specialists, who devised this cognitive bias, I think in the 70s, and so they showed that for many people, the proportion between the confidence in a specific area and the knowledge people have in this area is inversely proportional, meaning you have a graph that goes, if you have the confidence on the x line and the knowledge on the y, you see that the graph goes up very very high, very easy, because it takes very little information for someone to be confident in this area, and they call that Mount Stupid, because you don't really know what you're talking about, and yet you are extremely confident that you know what you're talking about, and that's very dangerous. And then the more you learn, and the more the confidence goes down, and then when it reaches the lowest part, that's called the valley of despair, because when you realize that in fact you don't know anything, sometimes this goes with some despair, some nihilism, some ideas like that, and then the graph goes back up, because the more you know, the more you are specialized in an area, the more your confidence grows, but it never goes higher than Mount Stupid, which means that the more you know about something, the more you know that there are things that you don't know. So you will never be sure enough as someone is that when you see those people on internet that read an article on something and suddenly they're expert on it, well, that's you will never see a scientist as sure about himself in his area as someone who just found out about something and read a couple articles about it on internet. So yeah, that's Mount Stupid and the Valley of Despair. We have also the bandwagon effect, meaning that as a social species, we tend to want to be integrated in our group, and that tends to make us think the same way as other people in the group. And because we don't want to stand out, because people who stand out, sometimes they're seen in a negative way. So this cognitive bias is also very much spread in our society, especially since now we have all this information at our hand, and it's definitely caused by our will to fit in. Then we have the halo effect, which is very interesting, because when we see someone who is very good at something, like for example a very good actor, or a singer or a politician, we tend to subconsciously believe that they are good at everything. So we tend to give them good properties about anything else than what they're specialized in. There's been a few studies where scientists asked a lot of questions about several people, and then they told them, okay, this story was told by George Clooney, for example, and then they told this story was told by I don't know, someone with a bad image, and they realized that people tend to believe more what George Clooney was supposed to have said than people with a negative image, because as soon as we see someone in a good light, no matter what the reason is, we tend to extend this view. That's hence the halo effect. We tend to extend this positive view to everything, including if George Clooney started to talk about I don't know, climate change, we tend to give credence to his words just because he's famous. and that's a wrong way of thinking, because he doesn't know anything about science. Well, at least not as much as any scientist. So his word shouldn't count more than a scientist just because he's famous. So we can talk about another one that's very interesting. It's the sunk cost fallacy. It's a way of thinking that when we have spent money or time or efforts into something, we tend to overestimate the cost of these things we already have spent. For example, when we let's take France, for example. They built the Concorde about 30-40 years ago, and they put so much money into it that at some point, when they realized that it wasn't as effective and as good as what they thought initially, they said, no, we can't stop it now. We spent too much time and too much money on it. And so they kept pouring money into it until some very bad accidents occurred. And this idea that, no, we spent too much time or too much money on it, so we can't give up now, that's the sunk cost fallacy. We need to realize that what has been spent is lost anyway, but this shouldn't have any impact on whether we continue something or not. The only thing that should impact our reasoning about what we should do is what is the situation. If the Concorde is dangerous, then no matter how much money we pour into it, the situation now is that it costs too much and it's dangerous. So this is the situation. This money we spent is gone. We're never getting it back. So we need to evaluate the situation rationally and according to what's present, not to what we spent so far. And you can see this also when someone has been involved in a religion or any political extreme idea. They believe that, well, they tend to believe that they spend too much time on it. They just can't be wrong, because otherwise it would mean that all this time was wasted. And so this tends to reinforce their refusal to reevaluate their beliefs, and that's not rational. And it also has a cost, because you keep you stay in a wrong situation because of some cost you'll never get back. But this cost will increase in the future too. So you should take into account only the future costs and the present cost instead of the past one. So now we're going to do the last tool, which is logic. So logic is the study of arguments, basically. It's a science to evaluate all the principles and methods that help us evaluate arguments. So we can simplify this by saying that an argument is composed by two or more premises and one conclusion. The premises need to lead to the conclusion. So we have three, well, there exists four, but we're going to talk only about three main type of arguments. The first one is the deductive argument, which means that if the premises are true, then the conclusion is true in 100% of the case. this is the most the strongest argument we can build, because if the premises are true, then we are certain that the conclusion will be true. Then we have the inductive argument, in which if the premises are true, then the conclusion is probable. Then we have the abductive argument, which is mostly used in science, and so we're not going to dwell too much on it. But the first two are very important, because sometimes we tend to mix them. When you say, for example, I had this talk a couple of weeks ago regarding the Kalam cosmological argument. You have people who take a premise and say this is so, and then when you start questioning them, they shift to saying, yeah, it's most probably so. And that's very important, because if you say that the premise is true, then okay, you can be sure of the conclusion. But if you say that a premise is probable, then the best you can say is that your conclusion is probable, not true. And the Kalam cosmological argument says, is the universe has a cause, the universe, and the premises are affirmative, not probable sentences. So you cannot say the premises are, yeah, but they're probable, they're most likely, or they're almost certain, because if you say that, your conclusion can only be as strong as your weakest premise. So if you have one of the premises that is true and the second one is almost certain, then your conclusion can only be almost certain. If your second premise is probable, then your conclusion can only be probable. That's very important, because then the discussion is different. If you say something is probable, then you need to explain how you justify its probability, how you calculated it, how you define it. On the other hand, when you have an affirmative sentence, when you say this is so, a claim is either true or it's not, and you have enough evidence to prove it or you don't. So these two arguments are very, very different, and we need to address them very differently. So we need to be sure that when we have arguments with people, we don't shift between deductive and inductive arguments. That's very important. So when you study logic enough, you will learn about the different types of terms, the strong one, and we're not going to go into this right now, because it can get quite complicated. But and I'm not entirely I didn't master the topic yet. So we can go to the logical fallacies, which are wrong arguments that are so frequently used that we give them a name. And again, there's something we need to be aware of, is that if an argument is fallacious, it doesn't mean that the conclusion is wrong. You could be accidentally right in a conclusion. You can take two premises that have nothing to do with them and make a conclusion that is true, but that doesn't mean your argument is good, because you had a good conclusion on. And in the same way, the fact that an argument is flawed doesn't mean the conclusion is wrong. It's just that you cannot conclude that from the premises, and that's important to understand, because sometimes we see people who say, why do you believe in this? And they answer, well, because of several things. And when you take those things individually, they break down because they are fallacious. And people don't realize that 10 bad arguments don't make one good argument. If one argument is fallacious, then you should take it away, and it shouldn't be used anymore as a foundation of your idea, of your belief, of your whatever. You cannot think that because you have several reasons to believe something, it doesn't mean this belief is warranted. You need to take every single argument you have and evaluate it. And if the argument is flawed, then you should get rid of it, definitely, and definitively too, because you cannot keep it just because, yeah, but there is also this one, and there is also this one, and there is also this one. It doesn't work like that. Logic doesn't work like that. So if an argument is flawed, you need to get rid of it. So let's see some examples of fallacious arguments. The one we see the most on social medias is the ad hominem, which is the personal attack. It happened to me at least 3 times today. It's when you are having a discussion with someone, and instead of addressing your argument, they will attack you personally, whether it's your character or your appearance, or they will say, yeah, but you always want to be true, or yeah, you're always attacking me, or you're making personal attacks, which is sometimes very ironic. So that needs to be taken down as soon as possible, because it's first of all, it's a show of weakness. If you attack the person, it means you have nothing to say about the argument, and if you have nothing to say about the argument, it means your position is based on nothing. So if you want to prove that you're right, give evidence for it. Don't attack the person who's claiming the opposite, because who's claiming that you're wrong, or that your position is not valid, because it doesn't bring anything to the discussion. And it doesn't put you in a nice light either. So avoid personal attacks at all costs. Another one, and which is a specific form of ad hominem, is the tu quoque fallacy. In the US, it's also called whataboutism. We've seen Trump and the Republican use that about 10 times a day since Trump has been elected. And what about Hillary's emails? And what about Obama? And every time you corner them into trying to defend something, they will put this burden on someone else. Hey, you look, but these other people said something or did the same. Or it's I don't understand how 70-year-old people use that, because it's so childish. I mean, you see that behavior in kindergarten. I mean, I don't understand how anyone cannot see how petty this line of argument is. The fact that someone else did anything similar or even the same thing, if that's truly the case, because in the case of Trump, it's most of the time it's just lies. But even if it's true, it doesn't make you right. It doesn't make you any less guilty of doing it. And instead of hiding like a coward behind other people, say, okay, I did it, or I did it for this reason or whatever. But don't hide behind others. That's childish. It's petty. It's an extremely cowardly behavior. Another one that's used a lot is the straw man. When you want to ridicule other people's position, and well, not when you want, but when you exaggerate or create from nothing someone else's position and then attack this pretended position, that's a straw man. It's like it's also very cowardly, because it means you don't want to address the real problem, the real discussion, the real argument. You're just avoiding it and creating a fake one you can attack because you're too weak to attack the real one. That's very petty, but sometimes it's very well disguised, and you need to pay attention to this, because sometimes it can be very well done and almost invisible. So be careful to that. Another example of logical fallacy is shifting the burden of proof, and we see that very often. I was going to say in theists, but we see atheists do that a lot. When you say, I believe this, prove me wrong, that's shifting the burden of proof. If you claim something, you have to provide evidence for it, no matter what your claim is. If you claim you are wrong, prove me wrong. Hey, hi, Godless Granny. Hi, Wes. Thanks for being here. So you cannot claim something and then expect other people to disprove it. You have to provide evidence for your claims, whatever it is. That's something most people don't realize. Again, I had one of these discussions yesterday, and an atheist said something like, I don't remember, gods don't exist, prove me wrong. And that's shifting the burden of proof. If you want to prove, if you want to claim something, you have to provide evidence for it. Let's take another one. Yeah, false dichotomy. That's a very interesting one. It's when someone presents a situation and they say it's either this or that. It's not this, therefore it's that. That's a false dichotomy, because, well, if there are other possibilities, of course, because if there are only two, then it's not a fallacious argument. But if you say, for example, like I saw yesterday, the morality only comes from can only come from society or from us. It doesn't come from society, it doesn't come from us, therefore it comes from God. That's false dichotomy, because there are plenty of other potential explanations, and you cannot reduce only to two of them. So that's something we need to work on also, because this type of argument is used very often. So this video was supposed to last 15 or 20 minutes. Now we are almost an hour long. So thanks for those who are here, and I will continue working on these videos. I will most likely do videos on very specific topics, logic, cognitive biases, science. In the future, I will also talk about Trump a little bit in the next video next Friday. So if you liked my content, please like, subscribe, share, anything you can do. I don't have a Patreon yet. I don't think I will create one soon. However, I might create an Amazon wish list in order to improve my camera and lighting. And so if anyone wants to help, then that will be the way. I don't want to set up a Patreon while I'm still only around 50 subscribers. I think it's a waste of time as long as I don't have at least 100. So thanks everyone for your support. Thanks for your suggestions, for criticism, for ideas, everything. And I'll see you again next time. Bye.